Well, hey, just wanted to take a minute here to go over an article I was reading on the politics section of AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Black and Democratic voters gain on Republicans in Georgia. Okay, this article is written by Mark Nisi and Greg Bluestein. And there's these little clever tricks that you can see in journalistic articles. So I used to do some political journalism, got paid to do it, ghostwriting. So that's how I sort of know a lot of these techniques. Um, I just wanted to point out a few because it's easy to point them out, those big headlines, especially if Trump or Hillary or someone like that is on the headlines. But on these sort of like local newspapers, you think they don't do this sort of stuff, but they do. And here's the technique I'm going to point out. So the narrative here is that black and Democratic voters are gaining on Republicans. And what they're going to do is basically conflate Democratic to always mean black and Republicans to always mean white. And that's the narrative they're pushing. It's the narrative that, both sides of the media want to take on and push respectively for their ends. And it's something that we need to be aware of and not fall for. And it's through small techniques like this. So watch. The number of black voters, and this is about the primary election in Georgia, by the way. The number of black voters rose 43%, the article reads, May 22nd election when compared with 2010, the last time there was a competitive race for governor, according to Atlanta Journal analysis of the demographic data released this week by the Georgia Secretary of State's office. The data shows the broad majority of African American voters polled Democratic ballots, which could cover the hope of Stacey Abrams, etc., etc. Okay, so here they have explicitly stated that 43% is the number that black votership rose by. And those black voterships, broad majority of them were new Democratic ballots. Great, that's sound. Now here's where they get a little tricky. At the same time, the proportion of white voters continues to decline. White voter participation in last month's primary was down 9% from 2010, and white voters are more likely to be conservative, making up 93% of the GOP primary vote and just 30% of the Democratic support. Now wait a minute. That's a non sequitur. Okay, white voter participation was down 9%. It doesn't say which party. And then it goes to imply that it's Republicans by saying white voters are more likely to be conservative, making up 93% of the GOP primary vote. That isn't that isn't what you did up here. And maybe the data just is off a little bit. So let's take a look. All right, so let's go here. We're gonna go get the data. Okay, active and inactive voters by race and gender. All right, we're gonna save it. We're gonna open it. Oh look, there's one for Democrats and one for Republicans. So you could have easily gotten the split. So what's he doing here? Well, it's one of a few things. One, he's trying to conflate white people with Republicans and just help the divide. Because I'm sorry, I say stuff like help the divide. It's to get money to do their job so the newspaper can print more stories. That's what these narratives are for. I don't think there's a global conspiracy or anything like that. It's, drama creates clicks, and if we can get a certain number of people to believe it, just like people tune into the soap operas, they'll tune in here. Okay. But then he even gives himself away a little bit down here. And this isn't, if you read it carefully, I'll link it in the comments. Read it carefully. He isn't, like, it's way down here in the article, way past that paragraph. And there's nothing that segues towards it. He says, the Democratic arc mirrors a broader trend that has shaped Georgia politics. White voters have steadily fled the Democratic Party. But he just told us up here that white votership was down and made us think that it was Republican. See how tricky that is? And then later, while he's talking about something else on another point, just describing some infighting with the thing, he's saying white voters are fleeing. So could this 9% not be from there, or not be from Democrats? Most likely it was something like 7% Democrats, 2% was Republican or something like that, and he was like, "Oh, that's not enough. I need some more," or whatever the case may be. It's a guarantee if all 9% were Republican, oh, he would have explicitly stated that. But that's not what he's doing. He's trying to uh, spin this narrative. Anyway, I just wanted to take a few minutes and point that out. I'm just gonna kind of upload this with no editing, see how it does. But just be on the lookout for stuff like that, because that's the logical equivalent of saying something like this. So that's a non sequitur. And non sequiturs in journalism are deadly because legally you can't be held for libel when you're using a non sequitur, because all you're saying is line by line, which how the law works. Um, line by line, all these facts are true. And then it takes talented attorneys, and usually you settle out to say that come on, you knew what you were doing, basically, but in so many legal words. But it's the logical equivalent of this is the logical equivalent of saying cheese sales are up this year, or something like that. Yeah, cheese sales are on the rise. Is on the rise. People are just all hordes of getting cheese. Okay, this seems harmless. You know what? The next line might read: Hitler really loved cheese. And in this BuzzFeed article that we just pulled, that surveyed 100 white people, 93% of white people say they love and support cheese. Now you're reading it. I mean, it's nonsense. It's cheese, but the way I just framed those facts makes it seem like uh, something bad is happening. That whites who like Hitler are somehow on the rise. It conflates it. And that's the job of the journalists. Unfortunately, it's not fact reporting; it's storytelling. That's their job, and they get paid to do it. And I got paid quite a few times to do stuff like that. And I just thought it'd be worth making this video. What actually started it was an argument on Reddit. I'm glad something productive came out of it, because arguments on the internet are usually dumb. I guess that's all I got. Thanks.